Hello, welcome to another Record Celtic podcast. My name is Daniel Caw. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sports' Michael Gannon and Craig Swan. Guys, good to see you.
All right, guys, good to see you. Good to see you. Me and Swan, well, for those of you who can see on the video, me and Swan both had haircuts this morning. Swan looks like a luscious Wembley surface, and I look like Dens Park.
Topical. I like that. Topical. I think the best place to start, guys, is probably at Celtic Park, because we're sitting here today, and I don't think even the most kind of positive Celtic fan would think they'd be 4 points clear at the moment. Obviously, it came from a win over St Mirren. Mick, I know you were there. First half quite rocky, but got there in the end. Is that fair enough?
It was, I think, a wee bit like the Ibrox the week before. I think it was a bit of a game of two halves. I think the conditions had a major factor in it as well, with the wind. I don't think we can underestimate the impact this is having in games across the country this last few weeks. First half, St Mirren really organised a good old-fashioned low block, which we've seen at Celtic Park teams doing this season. And Celtic didn't really create anything at all. I mean, they really struggled to get through. A few St Mirren injuries had to reshape things a wee bit. Second half, Celtic came out, wind at the back, all guns blazing, got the goal, crucially, early in the second half. And from that point on, really relaxed, played some really good stuff. And 3 was the kind of least they could have got to that game. It could have been 4, 5, 6 by the end. Zach Hemmings made a couple of great saves, a couple of chances getting missed. But it was a really comfortable afternoon in the end, and some pretty good football getting played as well. And then, so from being at half-time, and listen, I've got to say, Celtic Park at half-time, I've been at a few of these games this season where the punters have been a bit grumpy. They've had 45 minutes left to go, and they've got a bit tetchy at half-time, maybe a couple of boos here and there and all that stuff. It didn't really happen on Saturday. There's a bit more patience getting shown. They seem to stick with the team. I don't think it's that thing. It's not a consciously reaction to kind of get top of the team. It's just a frustration that comes out sometimes, and that can translate onto the pitch. It never really happened at the weekend. A bit more patience involved, and it paid off. And by the end, it was a really comfortable afternoon. 24 hours later, the result comes back from Dingwall, and it turns into a dream weekend for Celtic, because the way that the league has been set up. I think that the result at Ibrox was a big one for Celtic, and I don't think it tipped it to the advantage as such, but I think it did have an impact. I think it was more positive in terms of Celtic's final section of the season. That one on Sunday has tipped the balance back in their favour now. You've got to say, I think it's a long way to go. I think there's more twists to come as well. But you've got to say they've got momentum. They've got the kind of positive vibes. The pressure is now piling on across the city. And Celtic fans couldn't ask for a better weekend, really.
Mm-hmm. That's fair enough, Sonny, isn't it? I mean, we're waiting for these post-split fixtures, which obviously Celtic have 2 away games. I think I'm right in saying it's going to be Rugby Park and maybe Tynecastle. Is that right? I mean, they're not going to be easy.
Celtic have been to Tynecastle twice this season already, so
as I said that, I thought, is that right? But
Rugby Park and Dens Park, I would have thought. And Dens Park.
There you go. That's why you guys are on the pod.
I don't know. I think Rangers are going to go 3 times to Dens, and Celtic. I think Dundee are going to go to Celtic 3 times to try and balance it out. So I think Kilmarnock's definitely one of them, and I'm not sure about the other one.
So that's that point. I think Celtic are also due to go back to St Mirren for a 3rd time.
I think that's the one. I think it's St Mirren and
Rugby Park, Kilmarnock and St Mirren away for Celtic if the Dundee game is switched, yes.
Well, Kelly alone, having lost twice there this season, it's not going to be easy, and I think you're right, Mick. It's far from over.
You only had to look at the English Premier League yesterday to see what happens at this time of a season. Things can go pear-shaped for teams very quickly. A lot of things come into the equation that you haven't previously factored, and that's the one thing I'm sure that Celtic will take great positivity from, is the fact that I know there are a lot of new members within the squad who haven't been over the course, but there's also an awful lot of guys in there who have. It just from the evidence, I wasn't there on Saturday. Michael obviously was, but I was at the previous 2 games against Rangers and Livingston, and I don't know, there was just a sort of intent about Celtic in both games. I thought that, when they played at Livingston, then at Ibrox, I know things didn't go Celtic's way as they would have liked in the second half at Ibrox, but for everything I can gather from the weekend as well, and haven't seen sections of the game since, subsequently, they look as though there's an intent about Celtic, which tends to happen. Listen, Brendan Rodgers used the phrase, didn't he? Celtic come alive at this time of the season. Now, whether that was an attempt at a bit of psychology, I don't know. But it's certainly how it looks to me. looking on from the outside anyway. Certainly the last 3 performances have been full of intent and very good. And 9 goals, 3 games. Very good.
Absolutely.
I don't think you can underestimate the impact of having Hatate back and Carter-Vickers as well. It's night and day. I mean, Hatate, I think he's still got a bit to do to get up to speed fully, but he's got that midfield drive. He can get forward as well. I mean, he got his goal. His goal was sensational the way he took it. It just brings a lot, and he actually helps Matt O'Reilly as well. He came on a great game at the weekend. But I think at the back, Carter-Vickers moves the ball quicker. He's very good with the ball at his feet. Solid. He must. I mean, no, he can defend. He's solid. He's a machine back there. But he just gets that movement, the ball quicker, get the ball forward. Alongside him, it Mike.
Michael, can I just come in there? I actually think there's something that he does that gets massively underplayed as well, Carter-Vickers, and you'll have seen plenty of games this season where it didn't happen. A good example of it would have been Motherwell at Fir Park, when in the first half Celtic there was balls getting played over the top and teams were getting in behind, and even when Celtic were rescuing the situations, it was maybe 20-30 yards from their own goal, and then they had to start the game 70 yards away from the opposition goal. When Carter-Vickers plays, I noticed it in the home game against St Johnston. I think it might be in the game just before the last international break. As soon as the ball goes forward, he wins it on the halfway line. He wins it straight away. Yeah. The other team's midfield can't go up the pitch. It then allows Celtic can just keep penning teams in and keep the momentum up and keep the pressure on and stay on the front foot. He's such a difference when he plays. He just nips things at source, nips them in the bud at source, and he's
before they become attacks.
Straight away, exactly. But the thing is, Celtic's midfield, the ball's been won back, and Celtic's midfield are maybe only 30-35 yards for the other team's goal. Yeah. And they can just keep pressing on, whereas the game doesn't get stretched. Sometimes when Carter-Vickers is playing one ball, I think that day against Motherwell, was it Theo Bear? Michael? Lots of problems. And actually, the game at Livingston that I talked about earlier, the first couple of times in the first 5 minutes, there's balls launched in the direction of I think it's Tete Yenge, and he bustled up Liam Scales, and it sort of opened the game up. And for some reason, Tete Yenge thought it'd be a good idea to then move across to the other side onto Carter-Vickers. Carter-Vickers nipped it in the bud, and that set Celtic on the momentum for the game. They then started to pen Livingston in. I think he's so important with that. It's not even his speed of pass; it's the way he breaks things up so quickly, keeps Celtic on the foot all the time.
He's a very proactive centre half, isn't he? He likes to get that first contact. He's not wanting to stand off. He'll go in there quick and try and win it high at the pitch. But even if he does have to deal with something behind, he's sneaky quick for a big guy as well. He can shift. Alongside him, you Nawrocki, Mike Nawrocki came back in for. I think he's 7 years. I know. I think he's only.
I'd stick with Mike or the big Paul.
Big Mick. He's I think he's only 7th or 8th start of the season. I thought he'd done all right. Whereas I think Carter-Vickers is sneaky quick. I think Nawrocki is sneaky slow. I think when the ball goes over his head, he does seem a bit to struggle a bit. He's good also at getting that early contact to winning the ball, but I think he's got to, because I think Carter-Vickers can recover and get in behind. I think he's a bit slower.
I also get the impression Carter-Vickers is a lot more subtle about it.
He is. He needs to give it better as well.
Guys get 3 kicks away.
Aye, definitely. But he is good with the ball at his feet as well, so that helps speed things up a bit, especially as the game more on, as they go a bit more open. But there is, I think Swanee says that there's a wee bit of a kind of spring about Celtic just now, isn't there? I mean, the first half display against Rangers was as good as we've seen them this season. I think the second half was always inevitable. What was going to happen in that game? I think with the conditions, with the wind turning around, and the players that are only quite 100%, when you got guys like Hatate and then McGregor coming on and not quite 100%, you know the pressure's coming with the wind. They can't quite get out as quick as they could in the first half. So I think it was inevitable it was going to be a hairy second period. Guys like Tomoki Iwata, who I thought tired as well. I mean, he's not used to playing. He's been playing pretty well, but he's not used to a game of that intensity for 90 minutes. And I thought by the end he was struggling a bit, and that had an impact on Celtic in that game. Dyson Maeda, who obviously now is going to be missing the rest of the season with injury, he actually looked a bit leggy in that game as well. So that was inevitable. But come back from that game and get another positive result was huge. And another week for these guys, for Hatate, McGregor got more minutes as well. it's all kind of seems to be trending in the right direction for Celtic at the moment, going to Hampden this weekend.
On the defence, Mick, when Scales, if and when he's fit again, do you think Rodgers will stick with Navrocki or Scales back in?
I suspect he'll put Scales back in, to be honest with you. I think he likes Liam Scales. I get the feeling he's still not entirely sold on Navrocki. I don't know. Just a feeling you get. He's not played a lot. He's had a fitness issue this season. He's had a few injury problems as well. And he took him off at the weekend again. As the game was well known, give Stephen Welsh some game time. So I suspect Scales would come back in if he's fully fit. I just get the feeling he's not sold completely on Navrocki as yet. No. He's still a bit kind of raw, I think. But who knows?
Another player, obviously, who came away with pass marks at the weekend, Adam Idah.
We're having a nightmare there, aren't we?
I know. As soon as I started there, I thought, oh, God. Adam Idah.
Rosetta Stone.
Sorry, Adam. Swanee, I think I'm right in saying 7 goals in 10 games, which, for a return, a player who was kind of, I don't know, people weren't exactly falling off their chairs when he was signed in January, but amazing return. There's reports that it could be as much as $6 million to sign him permanently, though. Would you push the boat out for that, or do you think he's worth that? What do you think?
On the basis of what has been seen so far, I would say absolutely.
Aye.
There's a couple of factors to take into what you just said there, Daniel. Adam Idah was a victim of Celtic's January transfer window dealings, or lack of. I feel like if Celtic had signed the new left back that the supporters wanted, and this one and that one, and he was like one of 4 who came in the building, I don't think there would have been the same, not pessimism is probably the wrong word, but there wouldn't have been the same kind of meh attitude towards his signing. I think he was just unfortunate from that point of view, that he was the only one. But his impact has been terrific. I think he's shown all aspects to his game. I mean, Celtic sending cross balls into the box and a guy getting up and scoring with headers it hadn't been seen since, I know Kyogo did it on Saturday, but since Giacomakis' time. He can hold the ball in, he can link the game, he's got a bit of pace and power in behind, he can finish. The goal record's good, he looks pretty mobile for a big fella. And if you look at the current market, and what is very good is his the way it's the variation from Kyogo is a completely different type of striker, which is good. It means that Celtic don't always have to stick with. There was a lot of complaints earlier in the season that if Plan A wasn't working, there wasn't really a successful Plan B there in terms of the front players. Being able just to throw balls up there, and I know that's not the way Celtic want to play, but in certain situations, it certainly helps. And that's not just a case for getting goals either. Michael alluded to the game at Ibrox, and Celtic couldn't get out for a period in the game. Yet when Idah came on, they were able to get out because he was able to take it in, get hold of it, bustle up Goldson. So it's not just a case of being able to sling balls into the box to score goals. It's also, in situations in the Champions League, for example, when Celtic are under a bit of pressure, it'd be good to be able to hit someone and just alleviate a bit of stress for a while. So that it's not just the actual goals, but in terms of the current market and what you have to pay for players, it's not that long ago Celtic spent £4 million on Patrick Klimala. So if you're asking me £5 million as a bet for Adam Idah, then I would say yes, 100%. He's young as well, and he's only going to get better. He's young. Brendan Rodgers made comparisons to him, and whether I'm not putting words into Brendan Rodgers' mouth. It wasn't direct comparisons with Moussa Dembele, but he was making, he was talking about how he got a player at a similar time and similar stages of their careers type of thing, and how he could see a lot of good attributes in there. Now, he's nowhere near as good as Moussa Dembele at this stage, and whether he ever will be, I don't know. But certainly in terms of what he's given to Celtic in the second half of the season, I don't think anybody can argue with it. And everybody says you get judged in the big games. Well, what did he have at Ibrox? 25 minutes, and he scored an absolutely massive goal, which really and truly should have been a winner if Celtic had done their job properly at the other end. So,
what more can you do?
I would say. You asked on the podcast a couple of weeks ago when I was on with you and Michael if Paulo Bernardo was worth 5 or 6. Which one would you pay £5 or £6 million for right now? I know which one it would be for me. It'd be Adam Idah.
Do you think we've got a deal done, Mick?
But listen, you talk about the phrase was just push the boat out. forget pushing the boat out, lift the anchor and set sail. This is a guy, if it's £5 or £6 million, snap him up. I mean, in fact, you're actually on the point where it might be they can't afford not to bring him in.
No.
It's a guy who's 23, he's done the business, he knows he can handle it, he can play in that setup. More importantly, I think he's shown that he's got the attitude and mentality to cope with it. I mean, listen, he walked in to a very kind of low-key response at best. Celtic fans shrugged it off, done the business, scoring goals, penalty kicks in the last minute and all that stuff. I mean, shown guts, determination a lot. He's also crucially a bit different to I think he's quite similar to Jackie Marcus actually, and he's the way he plays, but in a different way. He's 23. He's not a guy he doesn't seem to be a guy that throws his toys at the pram if he's not starting. He's just determined to have an impact. He came off the bench at Ibrox, done it again on Saturday, and was a man possessed trying to make an impact. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of attitude that you want around it. People might say, listen, £6 million might be a bit rich for a guy who's not guaranteed to start. But we know the Celtic in the transfer market in the last 18 months or so, they've been a bit dithery, a bit kind of doddery times, waiting and waiting and not pulling the deals off. It's a guy right under their nose who's proven he can perform. Mm-hmm. The first point of business should be getting him snapped up on a long-term deal, as far as I'm concerned. He's shown enough. You don't get any guarantees when you make signings. This one's close to getting a guarantee because he's done it already. So I would think it's an absolute no-brainer. I think that the irony is that the better he plays for Celtic, the more his fees going up. Mm-hmm. But that's what happens if you get a loan player in. You can't. It's happening. The same thing's happening with Mikey Johnson at West Brom. I mean, a guy who would potentially be going out for nothing in the summer is now, you're talking, we could be leaving for £5, £6, £7, £8 million, mm-hmm. or coming back a different prospect. So that's the chance to take the loan deals. But it's trying
to Michael, sorry to break in, but that'd be fascinating if West Brom handed Celtic £5 million for Mikey Johnson, you could just hand it over to Adam Idah. I mean, just like, when can that deal be done? Yesterday?
Exactly, write the check and send it to the Canaries. Exactly. It's for me, it's a no-brainer because it's not a gamble. Most signs are gambles, and this wouldn't be a gamble because you know what they're going to get. I got a guy who's young, hungry, knows the club, has the mentality, and isn't going to be banging doors every week if he isn't playing every week from the start because he knows he's got a part to play.
See, just on Mikey Johnson there, guys. I wasn't going to ask this, but since he's been brought up, Championship Player of the Month. One of my good mates is a West Brom fan, and he can't believe how good he is. He's, stunned at how good he's been. Do you think there's any way back at Celtic? Or is this, he's obviously shown it's easier, the weight of the jersey and all that? I mean, I don't know what you think. Is he... I think
there may be something in, and I should apologise. Obviously, Nicholas Kuhn was signed as well as Adam Idah in January, and has obviously gone into the position that Mikey Johnson was occupying. Listen, I think there might be something in what you're saying, Daniel. Now, we've all been fortunate enough to be around football and be around different cities and be around different places, and you always think that the world revolves around where you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you go to Birmingham and you see the passion for West Brom and Aston Villa and Birmingham and Wolves just a little bit further out and things like that. I mean, it's just as intense playing down there as well, but there's just certain places it doesn't just seem to work. And I just can't see it happening for Mikey Johnson now at Celtic. I just think that the opportunities have been there and he's been unable to really grasp them. And sometimes that just happens with players. It doesn't make him a bad player. It doesn't. I mean, there'll be guys at Norwich down the road talking about Adam Idah saying, well, why can't I do that for Norwich? Should we bring Adam Idah back? Is there a future for Adam Idah at Norwich? Well, maybe it just doesn't happening for him there and he just needs a change, which seems to be the viewpoint down there. And he flourishes here. I think that's happening with Mikey Johnson. It happens a lot. With players that go on loan. I don't think it's a criticism of Johnson that people will say, oh, he can't handle playing for Celtic, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But my own view is I don't think there's any way back. I think if he can find some good form and find some happiness, Celtic can get a few quid. He can be an important player. It'll further his international career if he's playing every week for West Brom. It looks like an ideal move for him if that can get put through at the end of the season.
He looks happy as well, Mick, in his football down there,
Yeah, listen, he's been desperately unlucky, Mikey Johnson. I mean, it's been brutal for him. I remember when I think it was Ange Postecoglou's first pre-season, he got injured and down a friendly game down at Bristol. and I think he kind of hobbled off, and he was like kind of upset, and he actually kind of said, "Oh, bleep, not again." And that's been the story of his time at Celtic. He's been desperately unlucky with injuries. There's bags of talent there. We've all known that since he was about 14 years old. You had talk about this kid in the academy that was going to be a world beater. It just never quite had that run of games that's managed to put it together. Have a new lease of life at West Brom. I agree with Swanee. I think Brendan Rodgers does like him, and he does like players that he can rehabilitate and help and develop and all that stuff. I just think there's a wee bit too much water on the bridge. I think the penny's finally dropped with Mikey. I think Mikey's attitude previously annoyed certain managers. I mean, I know that Rodgers the first time round had a few stern words for him. Neil Lennon as well had a few stern words for him as well. So I think the penny dropped with him, and he's now fit and fire, and he's a good player. But I agree with Swanee. I think maybe best to let him crack on and see how he'll have a great career, no doubt about it. If he stays injury free, but it's maybe time for him to try something in a new environment and go on with it. For all parties, I'm still going to get a few quid from it. It's money that they wouldn't expect to have made in January, but that's for sure. But we'll see. It also wouldn't surprise me to come back and be sitting in pre-season. That's why I was laughing, because I think Sonny will be the same. How many times I've written that story at the start of a season? This is going to be. It's almost like the only frozen horses. This time next year we'll be millionaires. That kind of story.
The problem is that story has been written too often for Mikey.
That's what I'm just going to say. We can't.
That's what I feel like it's been written too often at Celtic for Mikey. I mean,
I can't write that. I can't write that again with a straight face. I just can't. I never. Back in the day, I remember it was never Duck Richter.
Yeah.
Number 3 pre-season in a row. This year you're going to see the real Duck Richter. I'm still waiting to see Duck Richter. He actually popped up in some charity game scoring a World Day a couple of weeks ago, didn't he?
Aye.
I was like, it's like he's going to be some mix zone saying this next year you're going to see the real Duck Richter at 44 years old.
I would agree with Michael. I have to say, Mike's a fantastic footballer. I don't think anybody's taken away from Mikey Johnson's talent. I don't think anybody would try and do that. He's an excellent footballer, and I've seen it in flashes at Celtic, but just not enough. And I think somewhere else is probably the best place for him.
Aye, fair enough. It's Scottish Cup weekend, as we touched on a little earlier. I know Aberdeen are having an absolute shocker of a season, but in a way that kind of, I don't know, makes me a bit more uncomfortable from a Celtic point of view. It's almost like they've got nothing else to play for. It's not going to be easy, this game, obviously, but I mean, how do you see it, Mike?
I don't think it's going to be. Oh, I say don't think it'll be easy. It could be 5-0 Celtic. We've seen Aberdeen against Celtic and games at hand and they fall apart, and I remember fans heading for the door after half an hour and all that stuff. But also we've seen Aberdeen putting up a good fight in games this season. They've caused Celtic problems this season. Every game they've played, they've been in the game. They've got players that have got ability. They've got attacking players that can be a nuisance. So it could be an awkward afternoon. Aberdeen I just look at a hopeless case. Look at a club that's going nowhere at the moment. But that's the only thing. I mean, the manager situation. And you think they could have turned the corner a wee bit, but they're back in that kind of. That result with Ross County puts them right back in the kind of danger area again, doesn't it? So they look vulnerable again. It's as always in these games, an early goal for Celtic and it could be a cakewalk. Don't get an early goal and Aberdeen dig in and it'd be awkward. It could be an uncomfortable afternoon. But you think Celtic have got too much for them. But I get what you're saying, because on paper Aberdeen have got a decent enough squad and especially attacking players. You know about Bielowski and Duke, but it's the rest that Aberdeen have to worry about, and the fact that they seem rudderless and seem kind of aimless at the moment. But it's a cup semi-final, so anything. I mean, still cliche, isn't it? Anything could happen. And I know I'm covering my bets here by saying it could be tighter, it could be a doing, but you know what I mean. It could go either way.
Either way, aye. Swanee, if Celtic do get into the final, it then puts pressure on the other side of Glasgow as well. They've probably got the harder semi-final. I mean, obviously it's all about Celtic.
I don't think what happens Saturday at hand affects what happens on Sunday. No. I don't think if Celtic win, it gives Rangers more stress, or if Aberdeen win, it gives Hearts a lift, or Bush Rangers. I think it matters. I think they're two separate Two separate ties. I wouldn't agree that they have any. I wouldn't agree they have any bearing on each other at all. In answer to your question to Michael, I think had the game been a month ago, you would probably have a little bit more concern for Celtic. I just think the intent they're showing at the moment, the way they're playing and the way the big guys are playing, I don't see them having a problem.
First Scottish Cup final, potentially, between the old firms since 2002, I think.
Biggest one since the last one?
Exactly.
Scottish Cup would be the first Scottish Cup final since then, yeah.
That's pretty mad.
Cup finals in there.
It actually is, when everybody from outside of Scotland and a lot of people inside Scotland tell you it's only two clubs and they dominate and blah, blah, blah. It's a strange one, yeah. You would have thought about it times, yeah.
Weirdly, I think Rangers have. You said they've got a tougher tie. I mean, not in previous matches between these two clubs this season. Rangers have been quite comfortable against Hearts, but I do actually agree. I think this time round, because of what's at stake for Rangers. I mean, Hearts are want to win the cup tie. I'm not taking away any kind of their ambition, but the pressure is severely on Rangers for this game. The way the league's kind of tilted this last few days, if they don't get into the final, that's major problem in terms of pressure on them as well. So that's going to be a really, really interesting game. Hearts can't be as bad as they've been previous games against Rangers. I mean, they just can't. I mean, Hearts are a good side. I mean, they're a good, solid side. I mean, they've had Celtic's number this season a couple of times.
No.
So they need to turn up at some point against Rangers. So that'd be interesting. I think it's a major pressure on that one. But it's pressure on Celtic in the Saturday, that's for sure as well. But this is the stage of the season where the pressure is on. So you either embrace it or you go and hide in the bathroom.
One thing's for sure, guys, it won't be boring, whatever happens. I think that brings us to the end of today's Record Celtic podcast. Mick, Swanee, it's always a pleasure.
And you, Daniel, thank you very much.
No worries, chaps. We get that Barnett cut and catch up with the rest of us here.
You're getting cold.
And thanks very much for listening. Cheers.